They called her equipment primitive. Then she activated what no species had seen in 10,000 years. An original HFY story from HFY Codex Archives. Part 1, The Relic Bearer. Word count, 1500. First day at the Galactic Institute. The Galactic Institute of Advanced Warfare accepted only the best. Cadets arrived from 200 worlds, each carrying the finest equipment their civilizations could produce. Energy shields that could stop missiles. Neural implants that calculated trajectories in nanoseconds. Weapons forged from exotic matter that barely existed in normal space. And then there was Lieutenant Maya Torres from Earth, carrying a metal box that looked like it belonged in a museum. The box was old. Not old in the way military equipment gets retired after a decade. Old in a way that suggested it had survived things that shouldn't be survivable. The metal was scratched, dented, covered in markings that nobody recognized. It had leather straps that were cracked with age. It had mechanical locks that clicked when they opened. It had absolutely no business being at the most advanced military academy in the galaxy. "Is that thing even functional?" asked Zextor, a Krillian whose combat suit could interface with 17 different weapon systems simultaneously. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, each one expressing a different shade of disbelief. Maya set the box down carefully on her assigned bunk. The other cadets in the barracks had already unpacked their gear: plasma rifles, gravity manipulators, personal shield generators that hummed with barely contained energy. Her box just sat there, silent and primitive. "It works," Maya said simply. "Works for what?" Press RA, a Vex whose crystalline form refracted light in patterns that made her hard to look at directly. "My people mastered energy weapons 3,000 years ago. What could Earth possibly offer that's relevant to modern combat?" Maya didn't answer. She opened one of her regulation duffel bags instead, pulling out standard-issue Academy uniforms. The other cadets watched, waiting for her to unpack something impressive, something that would justify her presence among the galaxy's elite. She hung up her uniforms, organized her personal items. The box remained closed. The instructor's strange reaction. Combat instructor Velnax was a legend. He'd fought in the Saraki Wars, survived the Void incursions, and trained generals who now commanded fleets. His species, the Thalmari, were known for 2 things: their tactical brilliance and their complete inability to feel fear. Evolution had simply not given them the neurological capacity for it. So when Velnax walked into the barracks for inspection and stopped dead at the sight of Maya's box, every cadet noticed. The instructor's skin, normally a calm blue, flickered to purple. His secondary arms, which usually hung relaxed, tensed like he was preparing for combat. His translator implant made a sound like static before his words came through. "Where did you get that?" Maya stood at attention. "It's standard issue, sir. For human operatives in my division." Standard issue. Velnax repeated the words like they tasted wrong. "That container is pre-contact era. That locking mechanism is mechanical. Those markings are..." He stopped himself. "You're dismissed. All of you. Training begins at 0600. The cadets filed out, but Maya could feel Velnax's eyes following her box the entire time. She glanced back once and saw him standing perfectly still, staring at the metal container like it might explode. That night, Zextor couldn't contain his curiosity anymore. "What's in the box, Torres?" Maya was cleaning her boots, actual leather boots, not the molecular bonded footwear everyone else wore. She didn't look up. "Equipment. Obviously. What kind?" "The kind that works." Sayara's crystalline form shifted with frustration. "You realize we're all going to be competing against each other here. The Institute only graduates 30% of incoming cadets. The rest wash out. We need every advantage we can get. If you're carrying some kind of outdated human technology that's going to slow you down..." "It won't slow me down," Maya interrupted quietly. "It's never slowed down anyone in my family." "Your family?" Zextor's primary eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" Maya set down her boot and finally looked at them. "It means this box belonged to my great-grandmother. Before that, it belonged to her father. Before that, it belonged to his mother. It's been in my family for 12 generations. Every single one of them served in combat. Every single one of them survived. 12 generations. Sayara's light patterns shifted to something that might have been confusion. That's how old is this thing? Old enough that the last person who saw one in active use is probably dead. Maya picked up her boot again. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to finish preparing for tomorrow. First combat exercise. The next morning brought their first practical assessment. The cadets were divided into teams of 5 and sent into a simulation chamber that could recreate any combat environment in the known galaxy. The objective was simple: survive for 1 hour against automated defense systems, rescue a simulated hostage, and extract to the extraction point. Most teams had already planned their strategies during breakfast. Zexthor's team would use their combined shield technology to create a mobile fortress. Sayara's team had 3 members with advanced scanning equipment that could detect threats before they activated. Maya's team had her 2 Drex who specialized in heavy weapons, a Poltar engineer, and a human pilot named Chun who looked at Maya's box with obvious embarrassment. "Please tell me you brought actual weapons," Chun whispered as they geared up in the preparation room. Maya opened the box. The other team members leaned in, expecting to see something: energy cores, weapon components, advanced technology that just looked old on the outside. Instead, they saw a knife, a compass, a metal canteen, a coil of rope, a small shovel, a fire starter, a first aid kit with actual bandages, a paper map sealed in waterproof material, and a pistol, not a plasma weapon or an energy projector, but a chemical propellant firearm that looked like it had been manufactured before humanity discovered faster-than-light travel. "You've got to be kidding me," one of the Drex muttered. "We're fighting automated defense systems with Neuralink targeting, and you brought a knife and a compass?" Maya checked the pistol's magazine, ensured a round was chambered, and holstered it. "When's the last time you maintained your plasma rifle without a diagnostic computer?" "I don't." "It's self-maintaining. And if the electromagnetic pulse hits, if your power cell gets damaged, if your neural link gets disrupted?" The Drex didn't answer. "I brought tools that work regardless of circumstances," Maya said, strapping the knife to her thigh. "You brought tools that work perfectly until they don't." The simulation began before anyone could argue further. When technology fails. The simulation chamber materialized into an urban combat zone. Collapsed buildings, smoke, the distant sound of weapons fire. Their objective beacon pulsed on their displays, 1.2 kilometers away through hostile territory. Zexthor's voice came through their comms. "Team 7 is already halfway to the objective. They're using shield link movement protocols." Chin checked his scanner. "We've got multiple hostile signatures ahead. Automated turrets, patrol drones, probably." The electromagnetic pulse hit without warning. Every advanced piece of equipment died simultaneously. Shields collapsed. Neural implants went offline. Energy weapons powered down. Scanning equipment showed nothing but static. Communication systems went dead. In the sudden silence, Maya's team stood frozen, adjusting to the fact that all their technological advantages had vanished in an instant, all except one person. Maya pulled out her compass, checked their heading, and unfolded her paper map. Objective is northeast, 1.2 kilometers. The EMP was part of the test. They're seeing who can adapt. Adapt with what? The Poltar engineer demanded. "All our equipment is dead. Yours is." Maya tapped her knife. "Mine works fine." "Chun, your sidearm is ballistic, right? Military backup protocol?" Chun fumbled for his pistol. "Yeah, but I've never actually." "You're about to learn. Follow me. Stay quiet. Move when I move. Stop when I stop." The Drex looked at each other. They were trained to use heavy plasma weapons and power armor. Without their equipment, they were just large bipedal beings in suddenly very heavy armor. "We should wait for the simulation to reset," one of them said. "There's no reset," Maya replied, already moving. "There's only pass or fail. Your choice which one you want. Primitive tools, advanced results." Maya navigated using nothing but compass, map, and observation. She avoided obvious routes where automated turrets waited. She used the smoke and collapsed buildings as cover when they encountered patrol drones. She didn't try to fight them directly. She led her team through areas where the drone sensors couldn't track movement effectively. The knife came out when they found the hostage. The room was sealed with an electronic lock that no longer functioned because of the EMP. It was also mechanically reinforced with a simple bolt mechanism. Maya used the knife to pry open the access panel, cut through the emergency release cable, and manually withdrew the bolts. 3 minutes of work that would have taken seconds with proper equipment. But it worked. The hostage, a simulation hologram, activated when freed. You must escort me to extraction. The Poltar was staring at Maya like she'd just performed magic. How did you know how to do that? Because before electronic locks, there were mechanical locks. Before mechanical locks, there were bolts. Understanding the technology that came before teaches you how to bypass the technology that comes after. They moved toward extraction. Other teams were still trying to restart their equipment, calling for simulation resets, arguing with instructors over whether the EMP was fair. Maya's team reached the extraction point in 38 minutes. Velnax was waiting there, arms crossed, his skin now a deep purple that none cadets had seen before. You completed the objective, he said, looking directly at Maya, using tools that predate interstellar travel. Yes, sir. Do you know why I included the electromagnetic pulse in the simulation? To test adaptability, sir. No. Velnax stepped closer. To see if any of you understood what you're actually carrying. He pointed at her box, which Maya had brought with her, strapped to her back. That's not a survival kit, Cadet Torres. That's a warning. Maya met his eyes. Sir, 12 generations, he said. That box has been in your family for 12 generations. Velnax's translator crackled. Do you know what humanity was doing 12 generations ago? Fighting wars, sir. Earth wars. Fighting the kind of wars where electromagnetic pulses were common, where supply lines broke down, where technology failed regularly, where survival meant understanding principles, not just operating equipment. He paused. Your ancestors didn't carry those tools because they were primitive. They carried them because they were survivors. The other cadets had started arriving at extraction, their equipment slowly coming back online. They stared at Maya's team, at the successful mission completion that shouldn't have been possible. Velnax raised his voice so everyone could hear. Every species here has advanced for 10,000 years. We've built weapons that can crack planets, ships that can cross galaxies. We've forgotten what it's like to be without those advantages. He looked at Maya again. Humanity hasn't. You advanced quickly, but you remember what it was like to have nothing. That box isn't outdated equipment. It's institutional memory of how to win without advantages. Zexthor's voice was quiet. That's why you were afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of the box, Velnax corrected. I was afraid of what it represents. There are ancient records from the first contact wars. Human soldiers with primitive weapons defeating species with technology they shouldn't have been able to touch. We thought it was luck, or numbers, or desperation. He gestured at Maya. It wasn't. It was this. Understanding that survival isn't about having the best tools. It's about knowing how to use any tool. The simulation chamber powered down. The exercise was over. But something else had begun, a recalculation by every cadet present of what primitive actually meant. Part 2, the symbol nobody should remember. Word count, 1,500. The midnight discovery. 3 weeks into training, Maya found Sayare waiting outside her barracks at 0200 hours. The Vex crystalline form was dim, which usually meant distress or deep thought. I need to ask you something, Sayare said without preamble. And I need you to be honest. Maya had been reviewing tomorrow's tactical scenarios. She set down her datapad. Go ahead. The markings on your box. I've been researching them. Sayare's light patterns flickered nervously. Most of them are just normal wear, scratches, dents, identification numbers. But there's one symbol that appears 3 times. Once on the lid, once on the side panel, once on the interior locking mechanism. Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. And and I found a reference to it in the Galactic Archives, in a section that's restricted to military historians with Level 7 clearance. Sayare moved closer. I'm a Level 3 cadet. I shouldn't have been able to see it, but there was a cross-reference error, and for about 15 seconds before the security system locked me out, I saw a file designation. What file? First Contact War. Human Operational Sigils. Maya, what does that symbol mean? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to her locker, and retrieved the box. She set it down between them and pointed at the symbol Sayare had mentioned. A simple geometric design that looked like a compass rose intersecting with an hourglass. It's called a persistence mark, Maya said quietly. My great-grandmother carved it into this box during the Battle of Kepler Station. Before that, her father carved it onto his equipment during the Titan colony defense. It goes back 12 generations because every person in my family who carried this box added it. But what does it mean? It means we don't quit. Maya traced the symbol with one finger. The compass rose represents direction, always moving forward, never staying still. The hourglass represents time, specifically that we have more of it than you do. Sayare's light patterns when completely still. More time. Humans don't give up, Sayare. Ever. We'll chase an objective for days, weeks, months. We'll outlast siege conditions. We'll keep fighting with broken equipment, no supplies, and no hope of reinforcement. That's what this symbol warned other species about during first contact. When you saw a human unit marked with persistent sigils, you knew they wouldn't stop. Not because they were brave, because they literally didn't know how to quit. The historical record. The next morning, Velnax called Maya to his office. When she arrived, he had a holographic display active, showing archival footage that looked centuries old. Sit, he said. Maya sat. Velnax manipulated the controls. The hologram showed a battlefield, a colony station under siege. The attacking force was Thalmari, Velnax's own species. The defenders were human, vastly outnumbered, hopelessly outgunned. This is the Battle of Kepler Station. Velnax said, 317 human soldiers defending against 4,000 Thalmari shock troops. Our technology was superior. Our tactics were proven. Our victory was mathematically certain. The footage played. Days of combat compressed into minutes. The humans lost ground slowly, fighting for every corridor, every room. Their equipment failed. Their supplies ran out. By the third day, they were fighting with improvised weapons and empty stomachs. They should have surrendered. They didn't. By day 5, Velnax continued, my people started making mistakes, tactical errors, poor decisions. Do you know why? Maya watched the footage. Because you assumed they'd break. Precisely. We kept waiting for the surrender that made logical sense. Instead, they kept fighting with whatever they had. Pipes, tools, bare hands. Our commanders started doubting their intelligence about defender numbers. How could 317 soldiers keep fighting like 3,000? He paused the footage. Then we found their equipment caches, and we saw the symbol. The hologram zoomed in on a supply crate. There, carved into the metal, was a persistence mark. Our xenopsychology team studied it. Velnax said, they determined it was a psychological warfare tool, something to intimidate enemies. They were wrong. It wasn't a weapon. It was a warning, like poisonous animals displaying bright colors. The symbol told us, these humans will not stop. Adjust your tactics accordingly or die trying. Maya looked at her instructor. You were there. It wasn't a question. I was a junior tactical officer, 23 years old. I watched that battle unfold for 7 days. We lost 1,400 troops taking that station. The humans lost 299 out of 317. And do you know what the surviving 18 did when we finally breached their last defensive position? They kept fighting. They kept fighting, with no weapons, no equipment, just determination that made no evolutionary sense. Velnax's skin color shifted to something Maya had never seen, a pale yellow that looked like fear and respect mixed together. That's when the Thalmari High Command realized humanity wasn't like other species. You didn't evolve to survive optimal conditions. You evolved to survive impossible ones. And you never forgot how. The advanced course. 2 months into training, the Institute introduced its most challenging scenario, the Extinction Protocol. It was designed to be unwinnable. Every cadet knew this. The point wasn't to succeed. It was to see how you handled inevitable failure. The scenario: your team is cut off behind enemy lines. No support, no resupply, no hope of extraction. Survive as long as possible while completing secondary objectives that will aid Allied forces. Every team before Maya's had lasted an average of 47 hours before the simulation determined they were no longer combat effective. Maya's team lasted 9 days. They didn't do it with superior technology. Their equipment failed on day 2, just like everyone else's. They didn't do it with better tactics. The enemy AI adapted to everything they tried. They did it because Maya taught them something the galaxy had forgotten: how to be persistently, stubbornly, relentlessly human. She showed them how to maintain equipment manually, how to create supply caches, how to fight when you're exhausted beyond reason, how to set up defensive positions that didn't rely on energy shields, how to use terrain instead of technology, how to sleep in shifts so someone was always functional, how to ration supplies so carefully that food meant for 3 days lasted a week. Most importantly, she taught them how to keep going when every logical analysis said to quit. On day 6, when the Drex heavy gunner lost all his weapons and wanted to surrender, Maya handed him her shovel. "It's a digging tool," he protested. "It's also a club, a lever, and a shield if you hold it right." Maya replied, "Now stop complaining and start being useful." On day 8, when the Poltar engineer said they should accept failure and restart, Maya looked him in the eyes. "In real combat, there's no restart. There's only alive or dead. Choose which one you want to be." They chose alive. By day 9, their team had completed 6 of 7 secondary objectives and was still combat capable when Velnax finally ended the simulation, the recognition. The entire faculty watched the after-action review. Nobody spoke for the first 10 minutes as they analyzed the data. Finally, the Academy Commandant, a species Maya couldn't identify, broke the silence. "Cadet Torres, your team's performance is unprecedented." "Thank you, sir. However, it raises concerns. Your methods are archaic, inefficient. They require time and effort that modern technology eliminates. They seem to contradict everything we teach about advanced warfare." Maya stood at attention. "With respect, sir, modern warfare assumes modern conditions. My methods assume nothing. They work whether conditions are favorable or not, but they're slower, less efficient. They're reliable, sir. Efficiency doesn't matter if the system fails. I'd rather have a slow tool that works than a fast tool that stops working when I need it most." The Commandant studied her for a long moment. "Velnax tells me you carry a family heirloom, a box with a particular symbol." "Yes, sir. He says the symbol appears in historical records from the first contact wars, that it marked human units as persistent threats." The Commandant leaned forward. "Why do you still carry it, Cadet? Those wars ended centuries ago. Surely humanity has moved beyond such primitive signaling." Maya considered her answer carefully. "Because the wars ended, sir, but the principles didn't. My ancestors survived impossible situations by refusing to accept impossibility. That lesson is worth remembering. Even now that we have technology, they would have considered magic. Remembering is one thing. Teaching is another. Your teammates in that simulation, they performed above their normal capabilities because you trained them in these archaic methods." "Yes, sir. That concerns some of my staff. They worry you're promoting outdated thinking, that you're slowing down progress by glorifying the past." Maya met his gaze. "Sir, every species here advanced technologically by building on what came before. You didn't forget mathematics when you invented calculators. You didn't forget physics when you developed faster-than-light travel. Humanity didn't forget how to survive without technology when we gained it. That's not glorifying the past. That's maintaining core competencies." Silence. Then Velnak spoke. Commandant, if I may, humanity's rapid integration into galactic society has been studied extensively. We wondered how a species that achieved interstellar flight barely 300 years ago has adapted so successfully to advanced warfare. Cadet Torres has given us the answer, which is, they remember what it's like to have nothing. Every other species here has 10,000 years of technological advancement. We've forgotten how our ancestors survived. Humans haven't. That box, that symbol, they're not relics. They're training tools. Reminders that capability without resilience is just fragility waiting to happen. The Commandant was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at Maya again. You and your team are being moved to advanced tactical instruction. You'll teach other cadets your methods. Not as a replacement for modern training, but as a supplement. Your course will be called Principles of Persistence Warfare. Maya blinked. Sir, the galaxy has forgotten how to fight without advantages. Cadet Torres, you're going to teach us to remember. The legacy continues. 6 months later, Maya stood in the same barracks where she'd first unpacked her box. A new group of cadets was arriving, fresh, confident, carrying the finest equipment their civilizations could produce. And there, in the center of the room, was a display case. Inside it sat a metal box, old and battered, covered in markings, and prominently featured on a plaque, the Persistence Mark. What is that? A new cadet asked. Maya smiled. That's a reminder. That before we had technology, we had determination. That before we had advanced weapons, we had the will to survive. That humanity reached the stars not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to quit. She opened her footlocker and pulled out her own box, identical to the one in the display case, because she donated her great-grandmother's to the academy as a teaching tool. This box was new, mostly, but it already had scratches, dents, signs of use, and carved into the lid, fresh but unmistakable, was a persistence mark that would eventually be passed down to her own children and their children after that. Some lessons Maya had learned were too important to let technology make them obsolete. Outside, the stars burned with the light of 200 civilizations, each one advanced and capable. But only one of them still remembered how to survive when everything went wrong. And that, Maya thought, was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not weapons, not ships, not technology, but the stubborn, relentless, impossible-to-kill determination that had carried her ancestors from caves to stars, and would carry their descendants even further, no matter what stood in the way.